The Holy Grail is a relic that plays a significant role as a theme in the various works of Arthurian literature. Depending on the narrative being told, the Holy Grail is either a cup, dish, or stone that possesses miraculous curative properties. It may also grant its possessor eternal youth or an infinite supply of sustenance. According to many accounts, the Fisher King is responsible for protecting the Holy Grail, and the hidden Grail Castle is where it is kept. Those who are looking for the proverbial Holy Grail may apply the term to any elusive object or target that holds a significant place in their hearts. In Perceval, the story of the Grail, an unfinished chivalric romance composed by Chrétien de Troyes around the year 1190, a Grail is mentioned for the first time. This Grail is wondrous, but it is not indisputably holy. In the later 12th and early 13th centuries, Chrétien's story inspired various continuations, translators, and interpreters, notably Wolfram von Eschenbach, who understood the Grail to be a stone. The Arthurian Grail trope's Christian, Celtic, or maybe other beginnings are unknown, and literary academics and historians have discussed its possible origins in both of these traditions as well as others. Robert de Boron, writing in the late 12th century under the pen name Joseph de Arimathea, depicted the Holy Grail as Jesus' vessel from the Last Supper, which Joseph of Arimathea used to catch the blood of Christ during the crucifixion. Following this, the legend of the Holy Grail got intertwined with the mythology of the Holy Chalice, also known as the cup used at the Last Supper. This concept was carried forward in works such as the Lancelot, Grail Cycle and, as a result, the Le Morte d'Arthur written in the 15th century. In this form, it is now a popular theme in modern society and has become the subject of publications that are considered to be pseudo-historical as well as speculations about conspiracies. Places believed to have some connection to the Holy Grail. Since the dawn of the modern era, a variety of locations have come to be identified with the Holy Grail. One of the most well-known is the Glastonbury Festival, which takes place in Somerset, England. By the 12th century, Glastonbury had become linked to both King Arthur and the location of his final resting place, Avalon. A myth began to circulate in the 13th century that Joseph of Arimathea was the person responsible for establishing Glastonbury Abbey. Early tales of Joseph at Glastonbury place more of an emphasis on his function as the evangelist of Britain than as the keeper of the Holy Grail. But, beginning in the 15th century, the Grail began to play a more significant role in the mythology that surrounds Glastonbury. In the late 19th century, there was a resurgence in people's interest in Glastonbury. This was mostly due to a resurgence in people's interest in the Arthurian legend as well as contemporary spiritual movements that centered on ancient sacred sites. In the latter half of the 19th century, John Goodchild concealed a glass bowl somewhere close to Glastonbury. In 1906, a group of John Goodchild's associates, among whom was Wellesley Tudor Pole, discovered the cup and began promoting it as the first Holy Grail. Since its founding, numerous New Age and neo-pagan communities have grown to center their practices and beliefs around the legend of Glastonbury's Holy Grail. Esoteric writers in the early 20th century identified Montségur, a stronghold of the heretical Cathar movement in the 13th century, as the Grail Fortress. Montségur was located in southeastern France. Similarly, the Rosslyn Chapel, which was built in the 14th century and is located in Midlothian, Scotland, became associated with the Grail legend in the middle of the 20th century when a series of conspiracy publications identified it as a secret hiding place of the Grail. It was also claimed that this Holy Grail relic was the identical cup that Joseph of Arimathea used to gather the blood that dripped from Jesus Christ's body during his crucifixion. This belief was widespread. It is believed that as early as the 1200s AD, the medieval knights went on a quest to find the holy relic that is often depicted in medieval art as a silver-footed chalice. While there is little evidence to connect the Holy Grail to the Vikings in the Middle Ages, it is believed that this quest began as early as the 1200s AD. The Holy Grail was an ancient relic that predated the famous Viking artifact known as the Bayeux Tapestry by a significant amount of time. Not only was the Holy Grail believed to have been used as a drinking cup during the Last Supper, but it also played an essential role in the Christian ceremony known as the Eucharist, which took place during Mass. Additionally, the Holy Grail is a significant relic because of its connection to Jesus Christ and the sacrifice that he made. The first known mention of the Holy Grail comes from the story of an Anglo-Saxon pilgrim named Arculf, who wrote in the 7th century about a silver chalice with 2 handles that were present at the Last Supper. The pilgrim recorded in his journal that he visited a chapel near Jerusalem that was located between the Basilica of Golgotha and the Martyrium. While there, he saw and touched a relic that was housed in a reliquary. The chalice was written in the language that was spoken in Gaul during the time that Christ was alive, the measurement for a pint. This is the only occasion that the relic of the Holy Grail is located in the Holy Land that was mentioned in any of the sources. The Templar Order of the Knights. By the beginning of the 1300s, it was generally accepted that the Knights Templar was the organization that had guarded and preserved the Holy Grail. Many people are under the impression that the Holy Grail was discovered by the Knights Templar while they were in control of the Temple Mount. When I teach early Christian art and history, I like to remind my students that it is possible that the Holy Grail, which was once guarded by the Knights Templar, was moved to other parts of the world at some point in time by utilizing the extensive network of partners, supporters, and other allies that the Knights Templar had. In addition to their role as guardians of the Grail Fortress, the Knights Templars were also devout worshippers of the Shroud of Turin and other important Christian artifacts. My research and the research of many others have led me to the conclusion that the Holy Grail may be the famous lost treasure of Oak Island, Nova Scotia, where the longest treasure hunt in recorded history is still ongoing today. This conclusion is based on the Holy Grail's association with the Knights Templar. During the Fourth Crusade, which took place between 1202 and 1204, according to legend, the Holy Grail was taken from the Church of the Bucolion and transported to Troyes by Bishop Garnier de Trainel. The court of King Arthur. Joseph of Arimathea is said to have transported the Holy Grail to Glastonbury, England during his lifetime, according to the tales surrounding King Arthur. During the medieval era, King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table are the ones who are most commonly linked with the search for the Holy Grail. Robert de Baron, a poet who lived in the 1200s AD, made the connection between the Holy Grail and its meaning in a poem he wrote about Joseph of Arimathea. Perceval and Sir Galahad, both members of the court of King Arthur, were the ones who set off on the quest to find the Holy Grail. Other sources assert that during the time of the Christian Crusades, a group of people known as the Knights Templar or the Poor Knights of Christ and the Temple of King Solomon stole the Holy Grail from the Temple Mount and hid it somewhere in their travels while they were guarding Christian pilgrims. Is the Holy Grail a long, forgotten treasure that has a chance of being found sometime in the future? Do you know if it's on Oak Island? Is it currently present in the Holy Land? How was the video? Do you like it? Post your precious feedback in our comments section below and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.